Hey, what's up? It's Tony Hawk, pro skater, and you're watching the Boys podcast. So make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and do all those things, all those buttons. Let's get it, because you want to see more of Joe. So do I. Thanks.
Tony Hawk? Oh my gosh, size 13 shoes. You love swamp bass, right?
Wow, not many people know I love swamp bass.
Look, it's actually him. Come on, turn around and say hi.
And welcome back to another episode of the Boys Podcast. My guest today is an icon. I mean, this legend here is a part of a lot of childhoods. He is a skateboarder, entrepreneur, and more. So welcome the legend himself, Tony, the Birdman himself, Hawk. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course, it's an honor to have you on. You know, like, oh my God, like so many childhoods would be like, oh my God, it's Tony. It's an honor.
Well, I appreciate the invite, and it was nice to meet up with you a couple weeks ago.
What have you been up to? How's Tony doing? How you doing, Tony?
Very well, thanks. I've been skating a lot. I went through a really bad injury a couple years ago, and I've been recovering from that ever since. But I feel like I'm kind of back to my back to what I was hoping I could get to in terms of my skill levels and my power and my confidence. And then I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements. I was on my way to a speaking engagement in New York, and then another one in Texas.
That's really cool. Now you do like a tour of speaking engagements, or
it was a short tour, but I do a lot of one-off speaking engagements for conferences or for gatherings or for corporate events. And the one that I did in New York was actually just one that people could buy tickets to. But I'm doing one next weekend in Vegas at a conference, and I'm just one of the hired speakers.
That's really cool. Wow. Well, is there a link in your Instagram so I could link it down for the viewers to check out and buy tickets?
Yeah. I mean, if you're watching my Instagram, I have a link in bio there, and you can always see what I'm up to. Some of the things I'm doing aren't available to the public, just because they're more like corporate events for only the employees of that company. But I'm always doing plenty of other public events, mostly skating. I mean, that's what I prefer doing in public, honestly.
Okay, that's cool. And if you guys ever want to he's very nice. Tony in person, super cool, super funny. Just want to compliment you.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course. Now, Tony, what made you want to become a skateboarder, and who would you say is like your biggest inspiration for like skateboarding? Say.
When I started, I was about 10 years old. It was 1978, and there were a few of my friends had just started skating, but mostly because my older brother was skating, and he's 13 years older than me. He was a surfer. He is a surfer, but he started skating because it was more of an extension of surfing. And then I was watching him, and one day I just picked up his old board and started doing it. And I mean, that was it. Like, once I started doing it, I didn't quit.
That's really cool. So the origin story of the legend Tony Hawk, basically. Origin
was a hand-me-down skateboard from my brother. Yeah.
Oh, that's actually like a follow-up. Like, who gifted you your first skateboard? I'm assuming your brother, the hand-me.
That was it. Yeah.
What is your favorite trick that you have done? And like, talk to me about doing the iconic 900. Like, that was iconic, thing.
Well, that one. Hold on, I'm changing my microphone here.
Oh, no worries.
I mean, if you want to know about that trick, it's something that I was trying for a little over 10 years of my life, off and on. And I kept getting closer, and then at one point when I got really close, I was about 7 or 8 years into trying it. When I finally tried to commit to it and make it, I ended up getting hurt. Broke my rib, and that set me off of it for a couple years, because I just thought maybe it's not possible, because I thought I had all the pieces to it. I was pretty certain that I could make it, and then the next thing I know, I'm laying on the bottom of the ramp with a broken rib, and so I put it off, and then eventually started coming back to trying it again, but not really with the intention of making it, just seeing how it felt. And then when they had the best trick event at the 99X games, I had a plan for a trick, but it wasn't that trick. It was a different spinning variation, and I actually made that trick, the one I had intended, early in the event. So it was a 20-minute event. 10 minutes in, I had made the trick that I came to do, and I didn't really know what to do after that. And so the announcer was kind of egging me on, saying, "Let's see that 900," because he knew I had tried them previously. And so I tried to do a couple just for show, mostly like for the crowd to see what it looks like when you spin it. It was with no intention of making it. And then as I spun a couple, something happened, and they were consistent. My speed was consistent, my spin was consistent, and then at some point I decided, well, if I'm ever going to make it, it's going to be now. And then I went all in on it, and I committed myself to several, and I think at some point I realized I'm either going to make this tonight, or I'm going to be taken away in an ambulance, and those are the only two ways this night will end. It wasn't going to be because I was too tired, or I was frustrated.
Wow.
And then it finally worked.
See, things happen for a reason. That's what my mom always tells me. Things happen for a reason. That was wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was all a big surprise, and I think it had to happen like that for me, because every other time that I had intended on doing it, there was just so much pressure that got to me, and I think that was probably a big cause of why I failed so many times at it, because I would go with the intention of only doing this, even if things weren't perfect. And in that instance, the ramp was actually perfect, but I had no preconceived notions or pressure on myself, and that's why it happened.
See, personally, for me, I think I'd be afraid to fly up and, oh my god, how do you do that?
It's a lot of commitment and a lot of trust in yourself. I mean, at some point, you're sort of using the force to land.
Use the force, Luke.
Because you can't see it, and you just have to know that it's there.
I give you a lot of credit, Tony. That's awesome. That's freaking cool.
Thank you.
Of course. Now, tell me about the process about having your own video game series. Tell me about that. That's cool. And that's all.
Well, that came about because I was trying to in the early 90s, mid 90s, I was working with a software developer that was trying to do a skateboard game, and he had a very basic engine with a few skate tricks, and there was nothing in the skateboard world. There was nothing that represented skateboarding in video games at that time. There had been an arcade game, the 720. There had been a home console game or a computer game called Skate or Die, but that was all like early 90s. So it had been years since anyone did anything with skateboarding in video games. So this guy approached me and said, I'd like to do something. And he and I went pitching it to different console manufacturers and software publishers, and nobody bit. No one was interested at all. They just said, skateboarding is not even popular. Why would a skateboarding video game be popular? So he gave up. And not long after that, I got a call from Activision, and Activision said, "We heard you're trying to do a video game." And I said, "Well, I was, I was taking meetings, but." They said, "Well, we are working on a skateboard video game. We'd like to have your input on it and see if you want to be involved in it." And so I went to Activision and I played the very earliest version of what became Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and I thought it was amazing. I mean, it was basic controls, just pushing, ollieing, maybe a kickflip. There were no bowls, there were no obstacles. In fact, they had just done a game with the likeness of Bruce Willis, so the only character they had for the game itself was Bruce Willis. And so the game that I first played was Bruce Willis on a skateboard with a gun on his back, because they had done a game with him called Apocalypse. And it felt great. It felt awesome, and I signed on right away.
Wow. That's really cool too, because your video games are so fun and addicting to play, you know.
Oh, thank you.
Of course. And then I remember you cameoed in one of my shows I liked as a kid, Zeke and Luther. Do you remember cameoing in that?
Sure. Yeah.
Wow. Now, did the producers approach you for that? Like, oh, would you like to come? Like, how did that happen?
It's let's see. I was doing a lot of stuff with Nickelodeon. And I mean, I was doing Slime Time Live, and I did an episode of all of that, and so it was kind of like I was already in the mix. And so when they asked me to do Zeke and Luther, I actually hadn't seen the show before, but I knew it was they were skaters. And so I thought, yeah, I'm in. Let's do skaters. So, like, it was kind of a very easy decision for me.
That's really cool. Now, over the years of your career, do you still keep in touch with other skateboarders like you've run against, worked with?
Sure. I mean, I try to. I mean, especially if they're still in the skate world, or if they still skate. Something like one of my best friends I grew up skating with, Kevin Staub. He and I were skating yesterday together on my ramp. But the legendary skaters I grew up with, like the Bones Brigade, Steve Caballero, Lance Mountain, Mike McGill, Tommy Guerrero. I mean, I still skate with Cab and McGill a lot. We all still have that. We all still have that passion, and that drive. So you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised at all the names that were around in the 80s and 90s that are still very much in the scene.
That's really cool. Wow, they're doing what they love, basically.
Yes.
Wow. Now, who would you say is the coolest person you've talked to, worked with? They don't have to be a skateboarder. Like, who would you say is the coolest person you've even met?
Jack Black.
Wow. Yeah, that's that kind of.
He used to skate in his youth, so he has an understanding for what I do, especially in the early days, and he has an appreciation for it.
That's really cool. Jack Black. Wow. Now, if you were a skateboarder, what would you have done as a career, and what other interesting hobbies do you have besides skateboarding, would you say?
I think as a student, I was really good at math. So I thought maybe there would be some future in that, but I turned pro at a very early age, so I was still in high school when I became pro skater, so I was already sort of choosing my career path. But after the first wave of success I had skating, things kind of died down, and I started doing video editing for other companies. So I think it would have been something in that realm, because I learned how to use a computer very early on. In fact, when a lot of people weren't really using computers for video editing, so I had a advantage there, and I probably would have just chased that as far as I could.
Wow, that's interesting. Do you have any hobbies like drawing, biking? Do you have any hobbies?
Hobby. Well, I used to play violin when I was a kid. and I recently tried to take it back up, and it wasn't easy. Let's just say I didn't start where I left off. But I'm learning a little bit, and I just like. I mean, we have a lot of kids, and so I like to spend time with them. In fact, if you can't hear it right now, my daughter is here with a bunch of friends getting ready to do a theater production because they're all starring in a performance here of You're in Town, which was a big Broadway hit. And so they're all trampling around the house, getting ready to go hit the stage. And I think if I have a hobby, it's more just trying to be available to them and participate in what they do, because but that's my greatest work is my kids.
Yeah, and I always like to say, like, family first. You always gotta keep your family first.
Sure, and but also supporting them in their endeavors and not imposing my preferences or my passions onto them. Like they just have to pick it up if they love it.
True, that's true. Now, do you have a favorite band or artist and type of music? I want to know, like, how did it feel? Do you feel like Superman while performing with Goldfinger? Because you did that. That was really cool.
Well, I do enjoy that. But my music history is much deeper, so I love the Clash as kind of my number one band in terms of just their entire catalog, and the fact that they have kind of a short-lived career because Joe Strummer passed away. But so much of what I listen to is central too.
You mentioned the Clash. See, my favorite song by them is like "Train in Vain." You probably know it.
Great song. There's a couple of some good covers of that too.
Do you have a favorite Clash song? Out of curiosity, a favorite.
Oh man, that is a really hard question. Stay Free.
That's your favorite song of all time.
That's my favorite song. Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. Stay Free by the Clash is Tony Hawk's favorite song. Now, do you have any favorites besides skateboarding? Do you have any favorite sports and teams? Do you have any favorites?
I don't really follow sports, so I'm not the guy to ask that. I mean, I can barely even keep up with the rankings of skateboarding right now because it's so scattered. So, if I had to choose a team, I would say San Diego Padres because I grew up playing baseball and I live in San Diego, and I've been lucky enough to throw out a couple of first pitches for the Padres, so that would be my choice by default.
So go Padres.
Go Pods.
That's cool. Now, what is your favorite food? What's Tony's favorite food?
Favorite food?
Favorite food.
I really love Japanese food. I love sushi firstly, but I love all the other selections. Tonkatsu, yakitori, things like that.
Now you're making me hungry. Do you have like a food that you don't like? Like you can't I don't want that food. Like anyone?
I don't really like onions.
Thank you.
I mean, I'll suffer through them if it's a part of the flavoring, but I'm not a fan.
See, for me, I don't like onions or pickles.
I like pickles.
You like pickles? You're a pickle dude?
One of my kids has a severe phobia of pickles. Yeah, where it can't be anywhere near his plate or have been in the same room for the most part.
He like runs away.
Yeah, it's over. I mean, if the meal is served and there is a pickle in somewhere in the mix, he's out.
So just throw some pickles. I'm kidding. Now, do you have any things in the works? Like any projects come up? Like anything exciting in the works coming in? Any news?
That's a good question. I'm working on bringing back Hawk footwear.
Ooh.
So that's kind of been taking a lot of time, and I'm excited. I hope it works. We still aren't completely certain that it's going to happen, but I'm feeling very optimistic about it. And just Birdhouse, my skate brand, we're still doing a lot of stuff, making videos, making clothes, making skateboards, and coming up, I will be at Vert Alert, which is our big vert competition in Salt Lake City, and that is, sorry, I don't have my calendar on me, June 14th and 15th, and then I'll be at X Games June 28th and 29th, and I'll be at the Olympics in Paris at the beginning of August. So you'll find me at all the skate events.
That's really cool. Wow, you're like a busy man, Tony. Dang.
Very busy.
Wow. Now, what advice would you give younger kids who want to become a skateboarder? What's Tony's advice? I want to hear your advice, because you seem like a wise legend. You know, like, what's your advice?
I think you want to learn the basics, and don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Like, don't just pigeonhole yourself into one style of skating or one type of trick or one type of terrain. Be open to kind of doing everything, because if you want to make a living at it, or you want to be successful at it, the more well-rounded you are, the more chances you're going to have, the more opportunity you'll have. And don't be afraid to be unique, because if you stand out, that's what's going to give you an advantage and a leg up. If you're just doing the tricks that everyone else is doing, maybe you'll get some traction, but it's going to be hard to stand out from all the noise.
That's true. That is true. I always like to say, like, stay humble. Remember, you came from, like, don't, like, get overly you know what I mean? Don't get
sure. Yeah. Well, I think that there's an element to skating where you have to keep challenging yourself.
Yeah.
And if you start to believe the hype and you think that you've made it, then you're going to lose your motivation. I mean, not only you're also going to lose your fan base if they think that you're full of yourself, but you're going to lose your motivation to get any better. And if you stop improving your skills, the fans will forget about you very quickly.
True. That is very true. Now, in the future, would you be willing to come back on for a part 2 when you're not, like, less busy, of course, like this, for example? Would you be willing to do a part 2, answer some fan questions?
Sure. Yeah. It would probably be better if it were sometime after the Olympics. So I would have a lot more to talk about.
Yes. That works. And before I ask you my last question, do you have any questions? I want to hear if Tony has any questions.
What inspired you to do this podcast?
Oh, great question. Well, you see, I started this on April 29th of 2020, you know, when the pandemic was going on.
Sure.
Because, you know, how the pandemic made people down and depressed and sad. I want to help lift positive vibes, make people happy and smile. Like, seeing, like, some of their childhood, like, this will really make people happy. Like, oh my God, it's my childhood, Tony Hawk. You know, like a childhood. Like, you know.
That's super cool. How did you go about getting guests?
Well, I just figured that a DM on social media, reach out to agents, managers, just any source of, you know, I don't know, like, do research I did for, like, to reach out to some people, you know.
And who is your dream guest?
My dream guest is an actor, Topher Grace. Did you ever hear that actor?
Yeah, sure.
That's my dream guest. That's, like, the number one guest I've always wanted to interview. Him or Jack Black, like you said, would be cool, because those are two.
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like either one of them is they're both within reach.
You think so, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to catch them on the right day or the right week, and if they have some time, they can do it, especially when you're doing it remotely. So I wish you all the luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Tony.
I'm thankful we connected and that you invited me on.
Thank you. It's an honor, honestly. Like, I'm like right now, like, my inner child is like, oh my God, it's Tony Hawk. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate it.
Of course. So, Tony, is there anything you would like to promote and shout out? Like, help link down below for the viewers to check out for you, to help you out.
Oh, well, Birdhouse Skateboards is my brand, and we're still making new gear, and we've got an epic team. And Hawk versus Wolf podcast is my podcast with Jason Ellis. That is every Monday, and we have a lot of great guests, including Jack Black.
That's sick. That is really sick. Wow. Well, I hope everybody checks out his podcast. I hope everybody checks out Birdhouse. Thank you again, Tony, for being awesome and amazing guest. It was an honor chatting with such a legend.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Have a great day. Stay awesome, everybody. And you stay awesome,
Thanks,
Tony.
man.